Africa. A fast-growing middle class, 65% of the population is under the age of 35. That makes for a very, very interesting market. The analogy I use often is if you think about India of 15 years ago. I remember in 2002, we went to look at investing in broadcasting in India. And there was a narrative within our own company, people who had not been exposed culturally to, to that part of the world, saw it as infrastructure is poor, dirty, corrupt, all those kind of really bad connotations, right? But if you look at India today, with that large population, and they were quite poor, right? They've taken 400 million people into the middle class, right? It's a market where it's almost difficult to get in because the price of assets are so high, all of those kind of things. So I think in many ways, for me, Africa represents the Indian opportunity of 10, 15 years ago. The people are resilient, super resilient. They are hungry for growth, and everybody wants a better life. And I think, to your point, it's the spirit of the people one cannot ever underestimate. People are tech-savvy. If you go anywhere in Nigeria, people are so tech-savvy, it's unbelievable. There are pockets in South Africa, in the Western Cape, in other parts of South Africa where, Kenya is just like supremely tech-savvy. So young people are adopting and breaking the digital divide, not because the platform is there, but they themselves want to break that. Policymakers, and I saw a lot of debate this morning, government and business arguing with each other about who comes first and who doesn't. We tend to take a generally positive view. When I talk to policymakers and I listen to people, I think there's a general awareness that they need to lay the foundations for growth. So I'm quite positive that policymakers are going to take us in the right direction, as you've already mentioned. The digital divide is narrowing, and narrowing really fast. We have natural resources like sun and wind that will solve, in the long run, the renewable energy problem. And I think, ultimately, if you look at the way we've handled the pandemic, everything looks really positive for Africa, in our view.
Alan, let me bring you into the conversation as someone from outside our continent. For the last 12 years, Switzerland has been ranked as the most innovative country in the world. How can Switzerland best partner with Africa in order to foster more of the innovation that has already been spoken about and that is already there as well?
So thank you very much, Zinga. Thank you very much for having us, for having me in this panel. And it's a great honor to be here and to have this occasion to speak about innovation in Switzerland and what we can do together with Africa. And first of all, maybe when when talking about innovation, what do we mean with that? I mean new processes, I mean new products, new services that gives you an advantage over your competitor. That's maybe it could be a definition. And I will start right now, if I may, with the conclusion. And the conclusion is, for Switzerland, it is really important to work with African countries and to partner with African countries to support the creation of innovative ecosystems. What does mean an innovative ecosystem? And how could we reach that? It is through exchange of know-how. It is through technology transfer. It is through investment in education, in academic exchanges between our countries, and in the support for startups and small businesses. And that's the conclusion. And how do we come to this conclusion? And to explain that, I must explain also something about Switzerland and innovative processes and innovation, history of innovation in Switzerland. And we have a very long history of innovation. You know, the watchmaking, you know, the pharmaceuticals, you know, the machine industry, you know, the textiles, you know, the chemistry, you know, the banking sector, you know, the blockchain, you know, also the chocolate. Chocolate making, it is not so easy. It was really innovative. It was really innovative with the first factories in the 19th century with the invention of the mix of chocolate and milk. It sounds obvious today. It was not obvious at the beginning, and with other very strong innovations. And you know, today chocolate, it's not just only chocolate. Chocolate is also a science. It is a science, and there is a chocolate working group led by a professor of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. And saying that, I just want to tell you that innovation has this long history, and the main point now is where does it come from, and how could we have the ecosystem to do that? These ecosystems are more or less always the same, have always more or less the same construction. It is a mix of educational system, high-class universities, vocational training in Switzerland, very well known. It is a very close pragmatic collaboration between research institutions and industrial partners and government at all levels. It is to use and to have startups to test new ideas. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, it's okay. It is to have the presence also of multinationals, big firms. They push research and development, they invest in research and development. It is also to have the protection of intellectual property, to have proper investments, and also to have the digitalization to foster solutions. And between Africa and Switzerland right now, we have partnership with South Africa in the development of blockchain, for example, and we are trying to develop those ecosystems. With this example, we have also another example in the health issues, where we are quite strong also with our pharmaceutical industries in Switzerland, but I can explain that maybe later if you want.
Okay, Winnie, let's bring you into the conversation. We've been speaking about potential innovation here, but if we bring the context into where we are now, emerging hopefully from a pandemic, you've spoken quite a lot about the need for Africa to be self-reliant, particularly when it comes to tech and health. So how do we make sure that that happens?
Thank you. And I'm sorry I'm a bit late,
okay.
Coming out of another session. Yeah, I'm a proud African, and there are many challenges, but I always see the potential of our beautiful continent. There is a bright future. By 2035, there will have been more young, smart Africans entering the workforce than in all the other continents combined. That's how dynamic the continent is. But right now, we have to agree that Africa is facing a raw deal and is being crushed. And I'm going to talk about the health sector, which I work in. We saw with the COVID pandemic how rich countries hoarded the COVID vaccines. They bought more than they could use. They left none for the rest of the world. Not only that, they also refused rich companies and their governments to share the technology so that others could produce for themselves and survive. So here they were making billions in profits, and here Africa and other parts of the South were dying. This is not about being left behind. This is about being crushed. I call it being crushed, not being left behind, because people were being left to die. Then the reasons given, you are not capable. You don't have the capacity to produce it anyway. South Africa put them to shame. A company in South Africa, within 1 year, also made the same vaccine, just like Moderna. But Moderna would still not share its technology so that they move it to production, to commercial production. So some of the challenges the continent faces come from the structural barriers within the global system, the trade rules that allow people to hoard a life-saving medicine and not share the technology so that others make for themselves. Today, in the HIV world where I work, there is a new long-acting medicine to prevent HIV infection. It is available in New York, but it's not available in Nairobi. Why? Because the company which has it, VIV, will not allow others to produce it. So we are pushing and saying, you have the treatment, you have the preventive, share it with more countries. To their credit, they have shared it with a few more countries, but not all countries, particularly not those who have the capacity, like South Africa, like Brazil, to produce generics that will go cheap, that will reach everyone. So Africa must become self-reliant. But to do that, it must also work on its own issues, like build the market where products can be sold and then that are at a competitive price with other regions. That is our business of integrating our market. It's happening, but needs to happen faster. But also, global rules must change so that we can have the space to innovate and to build our own medicines and vaccines. South Africa has a hub, I must end on that one, has a hub for mRNA technology, that technology that was used to save lives in COVID. This hub has spokes all over the South, in Asia, in Latin America, in the Middle East, sharing technology. It's really the first model of developing technology that is shared across regions. It needs support, political support, technical support, financial support, so that it succeeds before the next pandemic. These are the things that will save us. And I'm optimistic because Africa is doing what's right to build its market, to share. And then also, we need a global movement to change global rules, make them work for all of us.
Professor Buren, what Ms. Bonima is speaking about is something that you as Tunisia have been working on when it comes to cooperation among the continent, also bringing people outside, perhaps like partners from Japan. Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you. As for continental and international cooperation, we firmly believe that Africa's future lies with itself and its people, and homegrown solution, solidarity and ownership are the key principles that guide actions and policies when it comes to achieve Agenda 2063 priorities. And in this spirit, Tunisia is sparing no efforts to further consolidate the intra-African cooperation and advocates for a more constructive and concrete South-South and triangular cooperation. And the African Free Trade Area will definitely contribute in accelerating Africa's development. And as you know, we have organized in late August of 2022 the 8th TICAD, the Tokyo Conference for Africa Development, and there we have identified a huge number of mature projects that are that are confirmed to be implemented. And I would like to talk also about international cooperation, because international cooperation and multilateralism remains instrumental in supporting Africa's transformation agenda, and thus in helping build the continent's future. There is a strong case to call for renewable partnership with Africa that embodies more the values of, and this is where we think strongly, solidarity, sustainability, and justice. And as demonstrated by the COVID-19 crisis, no one is safe unless everyone is. And this mantra is still relevant in the face of the oppressive global crisis that we are facing in Africa.
Mchaz, we've spoken quite a lot about the wonderful things about our continent and some of the challenges as well. It's not obviously, Africa is not one place that has the same environment. There are also quite a lot of challenges when you're coming in, particularly if you're an investor, if you're looking to do business. Just tell me a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, very happy to share. We've been on the continent for 35 years. It's definitely not easy to navigate. I don't think any prize worth having is easy to get to. You're right, it will be a mistake to treat the continent as one country. Your world is very different from our world. We operate in sub-Saharan Africa. It's very different nuances, different languages, different cultural nuances, all of those kind of things. I think you need to understand those kind of things. Our philosophy as a company has been to take a macro approach, a macro strategic approach with a local tactical operational approach in each country. I think it requires deep belief It's not an easy continent, so you need belief, and I think belief is really important. I think you need commitment. If you're committed, and you need to be committed for the long run, that's very important. You need a deep understanding of the local nuances in each country. They are really, really important. You need to have resolve. Resolve is really important. I think giving back gives you credibility, not only giving back for giving back's sake, but I think it also brings credibility. It's natural that you have to give back. But in your local communities, in the countries in which you operate, giving back is really important. We've often taken the approach of local partnerships. In other words, we have shareholders in the major countries in which we operate. We have local management. It's very hard, I think, for a South African colonial, sometimes the rest of Africa sees South Africans as colonial in their approach. And we've seen many South African companies go up north and fail miserably.